Well, I do think what you've mentioned is some of the data that's coming in now from the satellites, some of the detail that we're seeing in the various fields that are available from the satellites, some of the computer modeling where you're able to start, predict when a thunderstorm may start producing lightning. But really, when it comes down to it, we're never going to be able to predict exactly where and when that first lightning strike is going to occur. And it really is a person's behavior that's going to determine how safe they're going to be. So going forward, I think we will be getting better at being able to predict lightning and when it's going to start, but exactly where it's going to strike and when it's going to strike that area is going to be very, very hard to predict in the future.
Yeah. One more question for you. I'll let Tim finish up with the last one here. But what about some of these devices you see out there, lightning deterrents, lightning rods? There's a lot of companies. Some of them look, as a meteorologist, sometimes I cringe at them. Are there a lot of false, preventative measures out there that people sometimes over-rely on?
Well, we recommend using a national detection network for detecting lightning. In some cases, you get what you pay for. So, in terms of accuracy, we think the national networks are much better than some of the handheld devices that you may see. But the combination of using any sort of detection along with what you can see and what you can hear should keep people safe. And when I say see and hear, that comes with the technology as well.
Tim, I'll let you have the last question.
Well, this should be a quick answer. We're going to talk about, is heat lightning real or is it a myth?
Okay, heat lightning is a myth. It is real lightning, but it's just lightning from a distant thunderstorm. So yes, it is a myth. And I will mention, I know you asked about a couple other myths. Rubber tires don't protect you. It's the metal shell of the vehicle that protects you. So there are still a lot of myths out there. But really, I think most people recognize that that the rubber tires are not protecting you; it's the shell. And really, as I said, the biggest myth out there right now is that metal attracts lightning. Lightning strikes wherever it wants and whenever it wants. And in order to be safe, you have to make sure you're in a substantial building or hard-top metal vehicle at that time.
All right, John. Well, thank you. That's perfect. That was our last of our show. We appreciate you coming on and heed those tips, everybody. Lightning safety is something we all need to take seriously all year long.
Thank you, Brad and Tim.
Hey, good evening, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in for Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. We'll be together for the next 2 hours. We want to start things off with an update on a story we've been following very closely over the last several days out of Gastonia, and that is the controversy around the cooling center. So we just got an update we wanted to mention from the city of Gastonia with just a few more details on what to expect, at least over the next couple of days, regarding this cooling facility. The city tells us in a statement that yesterday and today it did open the city-owned facility, that Salvation Army building where we had seen that indoor setup created. They opened that as a cooling station once again this week because of the excessive and dangerous heat. City will reportedly use this property when the heat index is between 90 and 95 degrees, and as the Health and Human Services standards are dictating that this needs to be done. Essentially, they say they will run this cooling facility Monday through Friday, 10 in the morning till 7 p.m. until council is able to meet and discuss. So they have actually set a meeting for this. It is the 15th, and city council will then talk about what maybe a more permanent situation might look like or a more lasting situation might look like. But essentially what we're seeing here, at least for the next few days, they will continue to use that Salvation Army building. Now of note, they talk about some of the services that will and will not be provided. So it sounds like Gastonia law enforcement, so police, will be offering the law enforcement services while that cooling station is open. Parks and Rec will be responsible for staffing, and they will have tables, chairs, bottled water, and a restroom. They say no food will be provided. More information available on the Gastonia City website, but just keep in mind on the 15th, the City Council is going to discuss this. So there could be changes with the whole setup going forward after that meeting. We just wanted to let you know, since this was a pretty big topic that we covered for you here on Live Impact News, including the extended version of that meeting that got quite heated several days ago. With that, we want to transition, speaking of heated and meetings, to a meeting that happened today in Monroe. If you're watching here on WCNC Plus for our evening news, we had an update out of Monroe city politics, if you will. We've got Miles joining us now. Miles, you were on that story. Miles Harris, you got this breaking update for us at 5 and 6 about this no confidence vote for the mayor. So tell us about that, and also all the other things that happened in this meeting.
Yeah. I want to go ahead and set like the vibe of this room when we got in there. It was a full house inside this city council meeting, a lot. And some were in favor and supporting Mayor Burns, some obviously opposed on the other end. But obviously there was a lot of concerns and questions really in regards to the mayor and some of these, let's be honest here, controversies of recent months. Some of the things that they had mentioned in the meeting, one citing the comments that he made in regards to the Supreme Court's decision of Roe v. Wade. Or he was actually censored for that, and some of the and there's a reason why we mentioned that as well. And there was a lot of other things as well that were mentioned also in regards to somehow how at the last minute Monroe was added to House Bill 3 in that last minute provision, which again has people that are voters in that area. They have to pick a party on who they are before they can vote or cast their ballot. So there's a handful of things that were mentioned in this decision as far as going for the no confidence vote. We heard from both sides. We also heard from the mayor pro tem, which was also an interesting point with this one as well, because they actually voted to remove him from his position as well. So there's a lot of layers with this meeting, a lot of controversy, and again, like I said, a lot of questions. Overall, though, it sounded like some of the city council members, they just didn't really feel that the mayor was doing his duties in the utmost way, or the way that they wanted to be represented when it comes to their city as a whole. They felt like some of the things that he was doing on a social media account, for example, and the ways that he had posted, even though he had cited that those were his own opinions and views, they felt like with his position and his chair, it didn't speak for the people of Monroe, and it wasn't in the best interest for the city of Monroe. So they just wanted to kind of hold this vote to kind of help hold accountability with their city leaders, but also just building transparency with the city members as well.
And I mean, I'm curious, what would feasibly come next here, because I mean, Mayor Burns will remain in office.
Yeah.
It's a no confidence vote. It's not like
and that's the thing that the city attorney did make clear as well, that this vote doesn't mean that he can be removed from his seat or his position. It's really just a symbolic move at this point. And so they really wanted to make sure that they emphasize this. Like I said, he's already been censored actually when it came to his comments made in the Roe v. Wade and a couple other of the social media posts. He again also had mentioned to the city attorney to chime him in mentioning that he's not breaking any rules, which by their standards, he's not breaking any rules by doing that. But that doesn't mean that city council members can't have their opinions or reactions to what he's posting on his platform, which they think is properly benefiting him, his viewers, his supporters, things of that nature. So again, a lot of controversy that's been centered around this mayor, which is why city council members are speaking up about this and why this had taken place.
Now, I'm curious, I mean, was the mayor himself present? Did he make remarks? If so, and what did he say?
Yeah, actually, a good question there, Vanessa. So he was there. He actually defended a lot of his positions. The thing that he did when it came to the questions surrounding his social media was he felt, and he made a stressful point in saying that he is using his First Amendment right. He's using his freedom of speech right to be able to voice his own opinions or thoughts regardless of his title or position. That's where he felt, and again, he felt like he's already been censored for those comments and issues and things of that nature, which is why he didn't feel like those things could go into factor when it comes to this vote or decision of no confidence. So that was one of the first things he also said. One, he did mention that he does feel like he is speaking for the best interest of his community, but overall he felt like he was doing everything with his job and his position within power within the right way. The other point we mentioned though as well was the decision that was made with the mayor pro tem, David Dotson. They voted to remove him from his position. Now I will say that the only two people that voted against the no confidence were the mayor and the mayor pro tem. Everybody else on the board that were in this meeting, city council members in particular, voted for the no confidence. The only two that did not was the mayor pro tem and Mayor Burns.
That's an interesting dynamic, and I'm wondering, based on the dialogue and who spoke and who said what, did it feel like that was like an allyship there between the two, and so maybe there's like factions within leadership there in Monroe?
Yeah, I mean, I think so as well. I mean, overall, it seemed like, based on some of the city council members that we had spoken to, whether it was for this story or other stories, they do have a wide range of community members, but overall it sounded like on either side that they just wanted their board, their members to best represent this city and this community. And so one of the things that they really had an issue was with the lack of transparency for city council members, so they say, when it came to the communication with this House Bill 3. They feel as though like the mayor may have known about this beforehand or before they found out. And so what they had told us, some of the city council members had told us, is that they did not know about that until they had got a call, the city got a call asking for a check for the changes with that implement for Monroe when it came to House Bill 3. So that's kind of where this also, I feel like, sparked this vote of no confidence. Just this and a lot of the controversy that I'd already mentioned, but this is city council members kind of speaking out and trying to voice their opinions or reaction, I guess, to some of the latest actions done by the mayor.
Yeah, and we'll remind folks too, because we've done a lot of reporting as well, including you yourself, Miles, have done reporting on House Bill 3, the fact that it's going to change up the municipal elections, so now those will be held on a different year, so I think it moves from odd to even years.
He gets an extra year now, or they get an extra year in that area, yes.
Yeah, and then as you alluded to, the fact that, some of these municipal offices, they'll have to pick a party, and if they want to run unaffiliated, they have to get a certain percentage of the voters to kind of sign off.
It's a big change, but it really is. And I think the thing about it though too is, overall, when I talk to some community members, they're like, this forces now the hand and the benefit side of like, you have to educate voters before you vote now. You have to, in a degree, understand what you're voting for, which can work out, but at the same time, if I don't feel as though I have to make this decision or make this change before I go vote, it feels like this, and this is also a change that hasn't been made in like over 60 years.
Yeah,
so it's a very interesting change. It does have a lot of layers with it, but that's just one of the things that a lot of city council members are speaking out against today.
Yeah. Anything else on this topic? Because I do want to transition, because we had the Gastonia Cooling Centers update, and I know you were on that story, but anything else about Monroe, like what comes next, anything you're looking at?
So council member Anthony will apparently take the role, or was been mentioned as being the role seeker or the person that will take the role for the mayor pro tem position. So we'll see what that transition looks like and what kind of changes in that regard. But I think the biggest thing here is they just wanted accountability and they just wanted to be full transparency moving forward, which I think we'll have to kind of see now based on this vote what that will look like in Monroe.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for keeping us posted. I know it was kind of a quick turnaround between the vote and you hopping in front of the camera for our news at 5 and then again at 6. So we appreciate that. And also, I mean, you're reporting too, we alluded to this just a second ago, in Gastonia. I mean, that is developing another layer seemingly. We got that update from the city. Essentially, it looks like they're going to kind of stick with this one facility for at least the next couple of days.
Yeah, and it'll be good and it'll be interesting to see, because one of the things that I did catch with that transition, I should say, is there was a lot of community members that wanted to step in, volunteer, step in and help out. And so there was a lot of questions and again more concerns when they abruptly closed the indoor facility, because a lot of people, the day that they opened it, had actually come to donate, whether it was food, whether it was resources, whether it was water, whatever the case may be. And so they didn't know, okay, if we can't have it here, where do we go next?
Yeah.
And what is the next steps? And what is the city doing to address it? So there's still, even though this is a big change, this is a big update, I should say, there's still a lot of questions about really, like we've been asking, how did this get to this point? What is the more permanent solution for the people in the unhoused community there? Because I mean, we know that this is a good solution for now, but long term, what's the answer?
Yeah, and I mean, I failed to mention it right off the top, and I should have. The fact that I think it even drew controversy to begin with was the fact that it was outside, and we had video that we were running just a second ago. Actually, we can cue it up right now. It's literally an outdoor setup just off of, it looks like a plot of grass with fans, literally just fans blowing. Like
There's misting fans. There's two misting fans taped to a fence. And the thing that they did update from when they closed the indoor cooling station, which was the former Salvation Army over there off of West Broad, which the city does own, they just taped the fence, or they chained the fence the fans to the fence.
Yeah, we can see it in the video, yeah.
But then they put tents over that as well. But again, that's not a permanent solution. And so we had spoken with the mayor. We had talked to a couple of council members as well. There was definitely some pushes for answers and trying to find that solution. And so there is good news knowing that there is a place that they can use that facility. But again, that's just one step into hopefully finding a more permanent solution for those people.
And you were covering the meeting that we saw most recently with the mayor there and some council members, because I think you told us that there wasn't a quorum. They weren't able to get enough folks there from council.
Only 3 members had shown up. The mayor and 2 other city council members had showed up, including Cheryl Littlejohn, who was also a big advocate on trying to right this wrong, I guess we should say. The mayor's been saying that very, very vocally as well. They had mentioned this is not an acceptable situation. And so they didn't get to actually make a vote or a decision that might have changed based on the update that we had just got. But there's a lot of questions on to who was responsible for this. And so I will say that based on what we have heard from the mayor and some of the people there, the finger does look like it's going towards the city manager. It may go towards another couple of city council members. We haven't really heard that side of things yet. Last week you mentioned some of those people were on vacation, so they weren't even able to be at the emergency meeting last Thursday, I want to say. So would like to kind of hear what they have to say in response to this as well, and also just the status of this. But yeah, still a lot of questions there.
Well, we know that you'll keep us posted. We'll remind folks once again, the next meeting is on the 15th, so a few days away. We'll be following this one pretty closely.
It's on my calendar as well, so I'll definitely keep it in my mind. So.
All right. Well, maybe you'll come back and see us on Live Impact. We hope so, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miles. We appreciate you as always. Folks, here on Live Impact, we want to make sure that you are staying up to date with some of our other national headlines that we're watching. You'll probably remember over the last couple of days, we've been talking about a lot of the tensions that are bubbling up in Los Angeles over immigration operations that are underway. We talked about last night, and we showed you the protests that were underway with community members who were speaking out about what they say are their concerns with military and having a massive ICE presence in the city of LA. And now we have the LA Mayor Karen Bass speaking right now, giving an update on the immigration operations. Let's listen in here on Live Impact News.
Altered the courts. Having said that, the courts we will still go to for a remedy as we are today. It is critical that we use every single venue, every single possibility of seeking justice, and that's what we're doing today. And I do hope that the courts especially issue this injunction and stop this. But one thing about our city, and I say this every time because I think it's so important, our city is definitely united. You don't see dissension here. You see a city that is united because this is who we are. We are a city of immigrants, and we will stand with Angelenos regardless of what country they came from, when they got here, or why they're here. And so with that, I am proud to stand in unity as we file this lawsuit and seek justice, and hopefully that will come in the form of an injunction. Thank you.
And now, a city that is the third largest city in our county and that has been the site of many of these unprovoked raids. I'm proud to introduce Mayor Victor Gordo of Pasadena.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney and colleagues. Mayor Bass, I'm joined here by our own city attorney in Pasadena, Michelle Bonaris. Let me just say that what is occurring in our country, and certainly in Pasadena and Los Angeles in our region, is unacceptable. Not too long ago, we had 3 gentlemen who were on their way to work in the burn area in Altadena, sitting at a bus stop, what I say is enjoying the breakfast of champions, donuts, juice, and milk, and waiting for the bus to pick them up to go help our ailing community in the burn area. And they were picked up by armed and masked men in Pasadena, who also pulled a gun out on a resident in Pasadena and aimed that gun towards that resident. Behind that resident was a parking lot, a sidewalk full of people. Behind them, a parking lot in front of a grocery store, 2 blocks from my home where my family and I shop. It's unacceptable in my neighborhood. It's unacceptable in every neighborhood in this county, in this state, and I would say to you, the country and the world. For an armed man to jump out of a vehicle, not identify themselves, wield a weapon towards innocent bystanders. Imagine the parade of terribles if that officer or agent had tripped, accidentally or intentionally pulled the trigger, missed, and an errant bullet would have gone into that crowd, the parking lot, and or the grocery store. It's absolutely unacceptable. Following those actions, a woman on her way to work on a Sunday afternoon, or Sunday morning I should say, to help terminally ill and infirm seniors, was snatched up from our streets. A woman who had been here for close to 30 years, both of her children are U.S. citizens. She's raising them here, actually 4 children. And she was snatched up as she was going to work to help our infirm and terminally ill seniors. That's just unacceptable. It's un-American, and it can't continue to happen. And so we're calling on the federal government together, and I thank all of my colleagues for standing with us and saying this has to end. As mayor and the first Latino mayor of the great city of Pasadena, I'm offended for our city by the federal government on behalf of our city and our region. As an attorney, I'm offended by the complete violation of due process in our constitutional rights. As an immigrant, I'm offended by the immorality and the plain out just dismissal of people who are here to contribute and want to help, as my family did, as I did, build a great nation. And so I join my colleagues and again thank them all and thank all of you for standing with us and saying there's no room for hate in our cities, there's no room for hate in our state, our country, or the world. Thank you.
And now it's also my pleasure to introduce Mayor Salvador Melendez of the city of Montebello.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sal Melendez, Mayor for the city of Montebello. Today I stand before you to affirm the City of Montebello's unwavering commitment to protecting the dignity, safety, and constitutional rights of every individual in our community. It is with that responsibility in mind that I am here in a collective legal effort to challenge the unlawful immigration raids that have been occurring in all of our communities. These raids carried out in and around our neighborhoods, including at and near our courthouses, have not only sown fear, confusion, and trauma, but they also violate the very constitutional protections that are bestowed in our Constitution. And that's constitutional protections that every resident, regardless of status, is entitled under the law. These are actions that defy the spirit of due process, public safety, and local control. We have been in collaboration with the City of Los Angeles, amongst many of the neighboring cities, to ensure that the specific experiences and impacts faced by the City of Montebello are accurately reflected and represented in the formal legal complaint that has been filed. The lawsuit seeks to hold federal agencies, including the Department of Homeland Security and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, accountable for policies and practices that violate the 4th and 10th Amendments of the United States Constitution and the Administrative Procedure Act. And let me be clear, we cannot allow families to be torn apart without due process, and we cannot stand silent while the constitutional rights of our residents are trampled. Montebello is proud to join this united front, and we stand with our fellow cities and with every resident who believes in fair, just, and humane legal system. Our message to our community is simple. You belong here, you are protected, and we will fight for you. Thank you for having me here.
And it is with great pleasure that I introduce someone who I knew before either of us was elected, the Mayor of West Hollywood, Chelsea Byers.
Good afternoon. My name is Chelsea Byers. I am the mayor for the city of West Hollywood, a city that has proudly been a sanctuary city since the time of our founding for both immigrants and LGBTQ individuals. The city of West Hollywood unequivocally condemns the ongoing ICE raids that are targeting immigrant families across our region. West Hollywood experienced an ICE raid on the 4th of July at a beloved local car wash. What we saw was deeply inhumane treatment of beloved community members and workers, and what we are sitting with now is fear and heartbreak. These actions are not only disruptive, they are also discriminatory and deeply destabilizing to our communities. They sow fear in our neighborhoods, divide families, and undermine public trust in the rule of law and due process. We have real needs going unmet: food assistance, health care, housing support, and rental assistance. But this is what the federal government wants to do to our communities? Unacceptable. West Hollywood stands with cities across the region in rejecting these tactics. We reaffirm our commitment to protecting the dignity, the rights, and the humanity of all people, regardless of immigration status. And we are proud to join this lawsuit and stand in solidarity with cities across this region and across this country in pushing back and challenging this inhumanity. Thank you.
And next, someone else I knew from before we were both elected, Vice Mayor of Culver City, Freddie Puzo.
Thank you. Freddie Puza from Culver City. I'm the vice mayor. Mayor O'Brien wanted to be here today, but had a scheduling conflict. Today, Culver City is proud to stand with the City of Los Angeles and a coalition of cities across the region in taking action against the Trump administration's unlawful and inhumane ICE raids. Thank you to the City of Los Angeles City Attorney's Office for taking the lead on this action. These raids are terrorizing communities, separating families, and violating basic civil and human rights. They are not about safety. They are about fear. And we refuse to let that fear define who we are. As a smaller city, some might wonder what difference Culver City can make, because every city, large or small, has a responsibility to defend people who live and work within its borders. And when cities of all sizes join together, we become impossible to ignore. Culver City has been a place that values inclusion, compassion, and justice. Joining this litigation is not only a legal step, it's a moral line. We're drawing a line. We are saying that the people in our communities, immigrants, refugees, mixed status families, deserve without fear of being torn apart. Ultimately, this is about humanity, and Culver City and this coalition of cities is proud to stand on the right side of history. Thank you.
And our final scheduled speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce the Mayor Pro Tem from the City of Monterey Park, Elizabeth Yang.
Good afternoon, everyone. Elizabeth Yang, Mayor Pro Tem of Monterey Park. It is my pleasure and honor on behalf of Monterey Park to join in this federal lawsuit in partnership with all of our sister cities who have also signed on against the federal unlawful immigration enforcement that has been happening in our community. I stand here with Los Angeles and cities across California because what's happening here is not okay. Monterey Park is 66% Asian American population, and we are here to stand in solidarity with all of our other immigrant communities in support of this federal lawsuit. It is not okay to rip children from their classrooms, away from their families. It's not okay to kidnap people off our streets without warrants, leaving their families not knowing their whereabouts. It is not okay to terrorize entire communities because of where people were born. These actions by our federal government violate our Constitution, destroy families, and sow fear in cities like ours, cities built by immigrants like my own family who are seeking a better life in our country. Monterey Park is joining this lawsuit to defend due process, preserve local authority, and protect every resident's dignity and safety. We will not be bullied. We will not be silent. We stand united for justice, for dignity, and for the right of every person to live free from fear. Thank you.
I think those were all of our scheduled speakers. I again want to thank everyone who is here, especially the lawyers from Munger who put this all together on our behalf. I think we're happy to take a few questions, and if you want to ask of anybody up here, I may punt to Munger on a couple of them, but that's okay. Yes, sir.
What's the constitutional grounds for this suit? Are you concerned about the law is unconstitutional or the tactics for the execution of the law are unconstitutional?
The tactics that are currently being used, the roundups, the raids without reasonable suspicion or probable cause, the fact that they are coming into our communities with the military. They have troops on our streets. They're no longer confined to federal buildings. Originally, the federal troops were in, the federalized National Guard was to protect federal property. That doesn't really explain the horseback ride across the park yesterday. So we are concerned about how they are carrying out immigration enforcement. We are not interfering with immigration enforcement. For decades, whether it was an administrative warrant or it was a court warrant, the way immigration enforcement happened was that your name was on a warrant. And then the immigration agents would come and arrest you. They didn't come to our streets and sweep people up indiscriminately, and that's what we object to.
You pointed out the fact they came in on horseback. Do you know if those were actual military forces?
We believe that there were National Guard. We have not identified Marines, if that's the question.
You know, what happens if they're Border Patrol?
Some of them are California Border Patrol. They still shouldn't be conducting immigration operations on our street without reasonable suspicion or probable cause. It is supposed to be targeted to individuals, not going through a summer camp for school children. Next question.
If I may, I'm going to ask a question of Mayor Bass. Mayor Bass, earlier today, I'll wait for you again. Mayor Bass, earlier today I spoke to a property owner who has a lot of property around MacArthur Park.
I know exactly who that was, but go ahead.
So he says that he felt like yesterday's action was warranted. What do you say to people who say that what happened yesterday was warranted because the city has not done enough to address crime and drugs in and around.
Well, so let me just say to that one individual that crime has been down in double digits to the extent of 40%, and I'll get you the most current statistics around MacArthur Park. There have been major seizures of stolen goods to the tune of over $300,000. Regardless, we have a Los Angeles Police Department. We do not need the Custom and Border Patrol coming through lined up in military fashion and doing absolutely nothing, because after their performance they left. And what was interesting was that they chose to come in the park on the side of the camp, not where the sides where there have been issues. So one individual, that's all I have to say.
May I address that on behalf of Pasadena? If I may, what's dangerous and offensive about three gentlemen with no criminal history sitting on a bus bench waiting to go to work, eating donuts, milk? What's offensive and dangerous about a gentleman washing cars in another part of our community? What's dangerous about a wet towel as he's drying off a car? I would say to you, nothing. And the tactics that are being employed, there's absolutely no room for military-style tactics to be used against people who are just trying to work and prepare themselves to go to work.
Has your city or any other city asked of the federal government to give you statistics as to how many of the people who have been detained actually have a criminal record?
We have. Our police chief has attempted to make contact with federal agencies, and the phone is simply not being answered in Los Angeles or in Washington, D.C.
We have a lot of questions.
I'm sorry?
For the Spanish media, could you explain in Espanol what you're announcing today, please?
Can we do that afterwards? And pull aside, si quiere, porque tenemos por lo menos 3 o 4 personas aquí que hablamos español. Así que podemos tener algo separado en español si le vale. Okay? Yes.
Quite a few questions, so we can try to keep it to one question.
Excuse me. My question's for the mayor.
Which one?
There's a lot of mayors up here.
I have other colleagues here.
Mayor Bass, this is kind of more of a broader national question. Reports indicate that ICE agents and police officers in Texas have been targeted in ambushes, including in Alvarado, where assailants in tactical gear allegedly lured officers with fireworks before opening fire. Given your strong opposition to federal immigration enforcement actions in Los Angeles, how would you address similar escalations of violence against law enforcement in Texas? And what steps would you propose to prevent such unrest from spreading to Los Angeles while balancing community safety and your sanctuary city policies?
Well, let me just say that the quote-unquote riots that were reported never happened. We did have a couple of incidences of vandalism and looting. But the way it was portrayed nationally was like the whole city was up in flames. The comparison to 1992, which was completely 100% inappropriate. And I think the example that you use, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with it. It was from some other state. But
Texas,
yeah, right. So I have no idea what happened in Texas. What I do know is what happened in Los Angeles, and what has been happening in Los Angeles has been completely unacceptable.
11 people were arrested attack ICE agents and federal law enforcement. So I was just trying to get your perspective on how you're going to contain the situation.
Well, I think I answered the question, but I can't respond to Texas.
I have a question for the attorney. The injunction and what you expect if the judge issues an injunction in this case. How would that change what we're seeing in Southern California? You also described the concerns about reasonable suspicion and probable cause. Do you have any numbers or estimates on how many people have been taken under those circumstances?
We're still collecting data because to date there's only 8 intervener plaintiffs, the county and 7 cities. I want to say that the injunction does not prohibit immigration enforcement. So let me say that again. Immigration enforcement will continue. There is nothing about the TRO, there is nothing about the position of the local jurisdictions here that seeks to impede or intervene with the constitutional enforcement of the laws of the land. What we are objecting to is the unconstitutional manner in which this administration is seeking to enforce those laws. You had a question back there.
Yeah, so with so many lawsuits that have been filed against the Trump administration's actions, and so many of them having gone nowhere, what makes you think this one might have a future and make a difference?
I actually think there's been 93 lawsuits filed. Many of them have in fact resulted in injunctions. In the last Trump administration, I think that every lawsuit that the city of Los Angeles participated in was successful. So let's say we have a pretty good track record at picking our targets. It is not something that we take lightly. We don't just pop off and sue the federal government. We have not done so before now. And this will not be the only action that we are taking this week or this month.
Folks, we're going to pivot away from Los Angeles and this update from city leaders on the immigration operations that have been underway in that community for several weeks at this point. We're going to turn now to live images just into the Live Impact News studio from Columbia, South Carolina. As you can see, California Governor Gavin Newsom is in the Carolinas right now. A bit about this meeting that we're seeing here. This is kicking off a multi-county on the road series that the South Carolina Democratic Party is putting on here, an effort to get the governor to connect with communities in the Palmetto State. Looks like some of the counties he is set to touch on: Marion, Chesterfield, which is here in the Charlotte area, Marlboro, Lawrence, Pickens, Oconee, Kershaw, and Florence counties. So let's listen in right now. Looks like he's making some remarks.
Vulnerable and struggling, but rural America is struggling, rural California is struggling, and I have a responsibility to do more in the spirit of what I said earlier and do better as well in my own backyard, and that's why I'll be back. I was there yesterday. I'll be back within a matter of hours and back on the job in California.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Based on your comments today, you say that you're bringing the heat towards governors are passionate about what's going on in Texas. Your administration sent crews down to Texas as well. What do you say to people who may be politicizing the event on both sides?
No, hey, I was the receiving end of that. That was extraordinary by these same guys, but they will never implicate me into their ways.
All right, sorry about that, folks. Looks like we just lost the feed. We're going to take a moment just to see if it dropped out or if they were just totally done feeding that to us. So just give us a moment to look into that. But in the meantime, we'll kind of set the table for what we're expecting over the next, I'd say, about an hour to an hour and a quarter. We do have for you the Monroe City Council meeting, which Miles Harris had joined us top of the hour to talk about, as he talked about the fact that this was pretty heated, and it did end with a couple decisions made, but primarily we're seeing the no confidence vote in the mayor. That was a 5-2 vote, so we do want to eventually bring that to you here on Live Impact News as we have some time. But we are checking in here with some of our feeds. Let's see here. Do you want to go to that, or do you want to go back to LA?
We'll go to LA.
Okay, let's go to LA. Looks like there are still some questions being taken regarding the immigration operations. If we get Governor Newsom back in South Carolina, we'll go to that. Otherwise, we'll jump back in with other news in just a bit.
Sorry, I have a question for Mayor Bass. I know you spoke with Border Patrol Chief yesterday when you were in the park. And after that conversation, he gave a statement where he said that he will be back at MacArthur Park and that he will come back to other parts of the city that he has been to before. Do you take that as a threat to the residents?
I think that's how it was meant. But I think the whole thing has been a threat. It's been a threat since June 6th. It's been a threat that the federal government, can go wherever they want, using whatever tactics, don't even have to identify themselves, can jump out of cars and snatch people off the street. Originally, this was supposed to have been very targeted. It's not now. And so that's why from the beginning, I have said that I think this is an experiment. I think LA is a petri dish, and they are essentially pressing the envelope to see how far the American public will tolerate the federal seizure of power from a governor. And this random thing is just a way of creating a sense of terror and fear in our community. It is having profound economic impact. It is obviously impacting and traumatizing families, and it is to serve a political agenda, none of which has anything positive to do with our city.
Karen, were we going to do a pull aside in Spanish?
If anybody wants to stick around and has a couple of questions, then the city attorney is happy to stay and answer.
Okay, it looks like that press briefing has concluded there in Los Angeles. As we get more information out of the West Coast, we'll bring you that here on Live Impact News. As promised, though, we wanted to get to the City of Monroe meeting, as we talked about. A couple things decided here, a few topics discussed, but essentially concluded with that 5-2 vote of no confidence in the Monroe mayor. Let's listen to the meeting right now.
But I'd like to make the following motion to remove position of Mayor Pro Tem, and I would like to nominate, and this is my personal opinion, a woman who is experienced, who is steady, who is more than qualified, and would bring a balance to this position that I think is needed. And others may disagree, and they'll have a chance to do that. But the motion I'm going to make is to remove Mayor Pro Tem Dotson from the Mayor Pro Tem position and nominate Councilman Anthony for the Mayor Pro Tem position, effective at the 6 o'clock meeting.
I second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. This time we're open for discussion. So I'll go ahead and start. Start this discussion item, I have a pressing question. Councilwomen Thompson and Anthony. The agenda lacks any item addressing Councilman James Carr's unacceptable behavior last month during our meeting recess. Why is there no discussion of his profane outbursts where he called me an SOB, littered his tirade with F words? Why is there no mention of him aggressively challenging the Mayor Pro Tem, David Dotson, taunting him to violence, saying, "What are you going to do? Hit me?" multiple times. Thankfully, David, a seasoned police officer trained in de-escalation, remained calm and professional. Councilwoman Thompson and Anthony, you both witnessed this incident. You assured us that you would handle this. Yet today's agenda targets David Dotson and me with baseless complaints while ignoring Carr's actions. Sir Luda, you said, what is good for one is good for another. Where is that standard now? This selective accountability reeks of political manipulation. During the recess, as our city attorney spoke with David and I, Carr summoned Mr. Long to the hallway. When David and I stepped out to verify quorum, we faced Carr's profanity-laced outbursts. Behind Julie and Sir Luda, he shouted, "Don't effing lie, you effing knew." Both of you acknowledged this behavior was unacceptable, yet now no consequences are following. Instead, the agenda suggests removing David as Mayor Pro Tem, possibly to replace him as Sir Luda, but Carr faces no scrutiny at all. If David or I had acted this way, I can guarantee you would be facing serious repercussions. This isn't leadership. It's an abuse of power. The people of Monroe deserve transparency and fairness, not political retribution. Why is Carr's behavior absent from tonight's agenda? Is it to secure votes, to demote David? So I urge this council to uphold the same standards for all members and address this injustice.
You want an answer? Robert, this may be a legitimate concern, and then it may be a distraction. I witnessed some of that and some of it I didn't. And I did say what's good for one is good for another, and I do believe that. I also know that if it was a problem, that you and David could put it on the agenda like anybody else. And since you were the one that allegedly was abused or called, had profanity, why didn't you put it on? Thank you.
Ms. Anthony, can I address that? So, I'm sorry.
Yes, you can.
Can I address that?
Mm-hmm.
You heard it. Why do I have to put it on here?
Hold on, order. Okay.
But if I put it on here, it's conflict for conflict, blood for blood, and that's not good governance.
Ms. Anthony, hold on. He's still.
And I'll say this, and I'll stop. I respect you highly. I do. And if you become the mayor pro tem, I support you. I hope you do a wonderful job. But this is the problem.
All right, folks, we're sorry about the audio issues there with that feed. If we can fix that for you, we will, and then try to replay the clip for you. Otherwise, you can find more information on our website, WCNC.com. We'll also have the latest information from this meeting inside the WCNC Charlotte mobile app. All right, so we've got, instead for you right now, it looks like we've got a briefing that we can share of this plane crash. Trying to get a few more details about that. Jeb, where's this out of?
I got you.
Thank you. Okay. This is out of North Carolina, Lee County. This was the one where, unfortunately, the family of 4 was aboard and did not survive. This happened Monday afternoon. Let's listen in here. We've got, it looks like NTSB set to give an update, and we'll jump in with any breaking news. Thanks for sticking with us.
Almost late there. It's been a busy day, so yeah, no problem. Tell me when you guys are all ready.
Just first thing we're going to need you to do is state your name, title, and spell it.
Yep.
Do you mean like 2 minutes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Could you count to 5 for all of us real quick?
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Say that again, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Everybody good to go?
No. Wait,
okay, wait, no move.
We don't respect. We all been there.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Enders, RyanEnders, and I am an aviation accident investigator with the National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB. The NTSB investigates all aviation and major rail, highway, pipeline, and marine accidents in the U.S. We're here to determine what happened, why it happened, and how we can prevent it from happening again. I'd like to say thanks, first off, to Lee County Emergency Management, Lee County Fire Marshals, and Lee County Sheriff's Office. In addition, thanks to First Health EMS, Deep River Fire Department, Moncure Fire, North Carolina State Highway Patrol, UNC Air Care, and all of the other first responders that assisted out on the scene. My sincere condolences go to the family, the friends, and this entire community that have been affected by this tragedy. I arrived on scene today at about 11:15 this morning, so the information that I have currently is limited, but I'll share what I can with you all, and I'll take some questions at the end too. At about 1:30 p.m. on July 7th, November 5656 Mike, a Cirrus SR-22T airplane, impacted open terrain near Stanford, North Carolina. There are 4 occupants on board, and they were all fatally injured. The airplane departed from Merritt Island, Florida at about 11:03 Eastern Time and was en route to Raleigh Executive Jetport near Stanford, North Carolina. About 5 to 6 miles from the airport, the airplane advised a local fixed-base operator about a loss of communications and navigational equipment. Shortly after, they advised the fixed-base operator that they had engine issues. The airplane was located in a private field about 1 mile from the airport. On scene with us, we have the FAA, and we have representatives from the airframe and the engine manufacturer. The airplane is going to be recovered and taken to a secured facility in Tennessee for further examination. Our on-scene work will conclude tomorrow morning, and then in Tennessee, all aspects of the engine and the airframe will be examined. Perishable evidence has been collected on scene, and we're already in the process of sending that back to Washington, D.C. for evaluation and examination. That includes things like recorders on the airplane and other non-volatile information. We look at all aspects of what were involved, including the pilot, the airplane, and the environment. So the pilot, we look at the past 72 hours of history to see things like fatigue, any changes in lifestyle, anything like that. The airplane, the engine, and the airframe, which we've already started to do. And the environment, any kind of ATC communications or any other weather phenomenon that were happening at the time of the accident. Once we leave here, a preliminary report will be published in about 3 weeks, and then a final report will take about 18 months to complete. If anyone has witnessed the accident or has information regarding the accident, we request that you contact witness@ntsb.gov. I have time for some questions. Just state your name and the affiliate for me.
Hello, John with ABC 11. Who was flying the plane at the time of the crash?
The pilot was flying the plane. They're flying the plane at the time of the crash. I don't release identities or names.
So this was separate from the family, or was this? I mean, can you tell us?
I'm not going to talk about the occupants on board. I can just tell you that all 4 of the occupants were fatally injured. Information regarding the occupants on board should be directed towards the sheriff's office.
Can you say anything about their flight history, their flight experience?
We're still looking into the pilot's flight history. We have the pilot's logbooks, but not all of the information appears to have been in his main logbook, which is not uncommon. Sometimes their information is stored online. I only have the physical copies currently, so that's going to take some time to get the rest of his flight history.
I'm Dan West with CBS 17. The SR-22 is equipped with a parachute system.
Yes.
Was that deployed, and if not, do you know why yet?
It does not appear that the parachute deployed. We're not certain why yet. Sometimes that's an altitude thing. There's many factors that could play into that, but it does not appear that the parachute deployed.
Is there any indication of what altitude the plane may have had discovered engine problems?
We don't have that yet. So the pilot reported communication and transponder issues, and that's playing a part into that.
Heidi Kirk, WRAL, of course, you know, for family and friends of the people in that plane, everyone wants to know what their final moments look like. We've heard theories like maybe there was an hypoxia instance or that plane lost gas. Is there anything you can tell us about their final moments?
No, nothing I can tell you at this point. It's too early in the investigation, unfortunately.
Maggie Lewis, CBS 17. Can you talk about the state of the plane? Destroyed?
Yeah, it's pretty beat up. It's all within one location, which is helpful. We have all the components of the airplane right there in one spot, and it's contained to a diameter, I'd say, about a fifth circle.
Rich Stratton from the News and Observer. Can you talk more about communication? Who was he communicating with?
He was communicating with somebody at the fixed base operator here at the airport. I can't give you names or anything like that. But yeah, he was talking to somebody here at the airport who was attempting to help clear the air traffic for their arrival.
And you said there was communication, there was transponder issues, and then also mechanical?
They initially relayed that they had communication and transponder issues, and then shortly after stated that they had engine problems.
Is that something that commonly goes together?
No, not always.
Had the plane made its descent, or was it descending at the time of this?
Yes, this was the final destination for the airplane. So it was coming into land here as expected when, yeah.
Just from looking at this scene from, images up above, it looked, really tough. I mean, we saw some tough things from just back at our station. How are people doing after responding to this?
It's a tragedy, by all means. I mean, it's a devastating blow to everybody, the community, and but we're going to figure out what happened.
Is there any sense and timeline between the call about the mechanical issues and when the impact occurred?
The call came in and they advised that they were about 7 miles out at the time from the airport.
Were they trying to make any type of emergency landing or trying to get into the airport as normal, was your understanding?
I need to clarify all that yet. I don't have that answer.
Is the parachute system usually automatic? I know we're not aware whether or not it deployed, or is that something the pilot has to do?
The pilot would have to initiate the parachute sequence. I have time for one more question.
I'll take it. Is there anything that was unique about this instance, or so far what you've uncovered from the investigation?
They're all unique. Every accident's different. We have a lot to go through yet. It's going to take several months, and that's why final reports take as long as they do. So a lot of challenges ahead of us, but nothing that we can't conquer to determine.
One last question. Was there evidence that there was fuel in the tanks or on the ground?
We're still working that out.
What is the, just one, what is the range?
That's going to be the last one. Sorry. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that update there from NTSB, this was regarding Monday afternoon's plane crash in Lee County. We mentioned that a family of 4 unfortunately perished in that crash. We're told that they are Travis Buchanan, Candace Buchanan, and Aubrey Buchanan, who's 10 years old, and Walker Buchanan, who was 9. Apparently this is the same family, the Buchanan family of Buchanan Farms in Sanford. And as you heard, there's still a lot more to be learned from the investigation. Even the official there wouldn't reveal who was flying the plane, much more to be revealed, but also they're going to be looking into exactly how this plane went down and how they can prevent it from happening to any other folks who would be flying in the future. We're going to turn back to LA as we've been getting some more information. Looks like there might be some one-on-one interviews with some of these officials regarding the immigration operations. I just saw that feed dropped out, so bear with us. We're going to pivot one more time. So we were going to bring you there to get the one-on-one interviews. It looks like that just wrapped up, just the second that I said it. But we will see if we can effort the City of Monroe meeting for you with hopefully some better audio. As we prefaced for you the first time we brought you to the feed, this was the meeting from earlier today where the mayor received a vote of no confidence, 5-2 from city council members, and there were also some other decisions made. Let's get to that feed, and it should have better audio for you this time. Thanks for sticking with us here on Live Impact News.
Accountability reeks of political manipulation. During the recess, as our city attorney spoke with David and I, Carr summoned Mr. Long to the hallway. When David and I stepped out to verify quorum, we faced Carr's profanity-laced outbursts. Behind Julie and Sir Luda, he shouted, "Don't effing lie, you effing knew." Both of you acknowledged this behavior was unacceptable, yet now no consequences are following. Instead, the agenda suggests removing David as Mayor Pro Tem, possibly to replace him as Sir Luda, while Carr faces no scrutiny at all. If David or I had acted this way, I can guarantee you would be facing serious repercussions. This isn't leadership. It's an abuse of power. The people of Monroe deserve transparency and fairness, not political retribution. Why is Carr's behavior absent from tonight's agenda? Is it to secure votes to demote David? So I urge this council to uphold the same standards for all members and address this injustice.
Do you want an answer? Robert, this may be a legitimate concern, and then it may be a distraction. I witnessed some of that, and some of it I didn't. And I did say what's good for one is good for another, and I do believe that. I also know that if it was a problem, that you and David could put it on the agenda like anybody else. And since you were the one that allegedly was abused or called, had profanity, why didn't you put it on? Thank you.
Miss Anthony, can I address that? Absolutely. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yes, you can.
Can I address that?
Mhm.
You heard it. Why do I have to put it on here?
Because you were the one.
Hold on, order. Hold on. Okay.
But if I put it on here, it's conflict for conflict, blood for blood, and that's not good governance.
Well, you don't seem to bother.
Miss Anthony, hold on. He's still.
And I'll say this, and I'll stop. I respect you highly. I do. And if you become the mayor pro tem, I support you. I hope that you do a wonderful job. But this is the problem. Other people heard this, but no one wants to stand up and say anything. But if that would have been me speaking to either one of you or anyone else, I guarantee you it would be on this agenda right now. How is that fair? How is that equitable? It's not. And so to say to me that it's my responsibility to put something onto the agenda that you heard, I don't understand.
I want no permission to talk.
I'm finished.
In the past, you've had no problem talking about things when you attacked Gary. Y'all didn't have a problem with that. That was something that had happened. You put that on the agenda. And you pointed Julie and me out. Everybody was out there. Why not the other people that heard it? I also heard what you said, shut up, James. So, all of it was out of order. Did you not?
Now, hold on. Who else was out there in the hall? You said everyone else. Who else?
I know that Julie and I were out there.
Mm-hmm.
James was out there.
Mm-hmm.
And Richard was out there.
Mm-hmm. And who else?
Well, the four of us. And then I'll go back to this. As a grown woman, if something bothers me, I handle it. I don't wait for someone else. While you were busy getting your statements together to come out and read and distract, I've been putting it on the agenda. And I'm not here to argue. I'm not mad at each of you. I love you just like I always did. But I'm here to be real and transparent. So talk about transparent. Say the whole thing. Y'all had something going on the whole time. Before he even said that, you said, shut up, James. But it's not tit for tat. But the thing is, any two members can put something on the agenda. Any two members. So don't make it look like she and I were the only one that could put it on the agenda. It's very easy. Only thing it does is takes talking to Bridget, sending the email or asking. Simple as that.
Now, Mr. Luda, just a reminder, you did say you would take care of it, did you not?
I said, yes, we'll take care of it.
Okay.
But that wasn't what I was talking about. I did say that. I was talking about the reason we was in the hole in the first place. That's what I meant we'll take care of, which we did when we came back in. We were out there because of the loud rant that accused us of being child molesters. That's why we were in the hole. And that's what I was talking about, taking care of it. I did say we take care of it, but you're assuming I meant that. You're wrong.
I have a call to question.
Okay,
If there's
okay.
no other discussion, don't we have a motion on the floor?
Hold on.
Sorry, that motion will be out of order unless everyone has had an opportunity.
Okay, that's fine.
Anything else?
Well, if no one else.
Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
And I just say one other thing.
Hold on. I've already recognized someone else.
Okay.
Councilman McGee.
Sure. As we enter this discussion on the position of Mayor Pro Tem, I find myself reflecting not just on the title, but on the timing, the tone, and the tactics. Because the question before us tonight might not simply be about policy, it might be about perception. And perception, especially in public service, matters. Let me take you back. At our very first meeting, as a newly seated body with 3 fresh voices joining this council, I made a motion rooted in wisdom, balanced, and lived experience. I recommended Councilmember Slaughter Anthony, a tenured leader and historic trailblazer, for the role of Mayor Pro Tem. That motion, it failed. No second, no discussion. And yet in that same meeting with swiftly appointed Councilmember Dodson to the role in a 5-2 vote. A motion from the mayor, second by Councilmember Thompson. It passed. No questions asked. Now, over a year and a half later, we find ourselves entertaining action to remove Mayor Pro Tem Dodson from the position. Let me be clear. Do I agree with every decision, every tactic, or tone used in this role? Not always. But disagreement is not disqualification. Divergence does not automatically justify removal. So I ask the question. One, I hope this body and our constituents will consider deeply. Is this about policy, preference, or is it positioning? Because when discussions like this arise out of rhythm and without a clear public call for change, it begs us to look deeper. Are we correcting a course or creating a pathway? Are we addressing performance or aligning pieces on the board for what could be a future campaign narrative? I raise these concerns not to accuse, but to awaken, to offer our residents a lens through which to view this movement through clarity, not confusion. If we're going to make a change, then let's be honest about why. And let's ensure the process is rooted in transparency, not personal ambition. Our city deserves leadership, decisions that elevate Monroe, not quietly maneuver us from personal gain. I'm still listening, I'm still watching, I'm still deciding. But tonight, I stand firm in this truth. Leadership should never be weaponized, and trust, it starts with accountability and honesty, especially among those who serve. So I ask again, is it policy, preference, or positioning? Because how we answer that will speak louder than any vote cast tonight.
Council, any other comments?
I have one. Okay. I'm sorry, Ms. Faluda, I'm going to read from a statement. I want to begin by reassuring the citizens that all is not lost. While it may seem that the dysfunction within this council is irreparable, it's not as chaotic nor as sudden as it may appear. What we're witnessing now is not the result of some recent crisis requiring an emergency response. Rather, it is largely a result of ongoing personal conflicts, posturing for upcoming elections, and at times, simple personal animosity. Take, for example, this agenda item we're discussing now. Mr. Carr has been lobbying the other members of this council for months, seeking to replace me as Mayor Pro Tem. What some may perceive as discord between council members is, in fact, in my opinion, the result of behind-the-scenes efforts to stir controversy where there is none. These personal issues seem to begin when I opposed efforts led by Mr. Carr and Ms. Thompson to require the mayor to get council review of all proclamations. I disagreed then, and I disagree now, that removing that authority from every future mayor simply because of this one council's opinion is not how governance works. It was clear that many members of this council had already discussed that matter beforehand. I was not part of those discussions, and that hurt the trust that I had with those members. Then I opposed Mr. Carr and Ms. Thompson's effort to remove the chairman of the board and the planning board. I disagreed not only with the removal, but how it was done, vaguely titling the agenda to get the item added after the meeting had began and giving no cause for removal. Again, it was clear that many members of this council had already discussed the matter beforehand. I wasn't included in those discussions either. And I'll be honest with you, that destroyed the trust that I had in members of this council. Mr. Carr's issues with me worsened when I raised concerns with the city manager about potential conflicts of interest that Mr. Carr did not disclose during voting on some agenda items. I was told that the issues were addressed with Mr. Carr. Immediately, Mr. Carr's attitude and demeanor towards me worsened. Mr. Carr began to make snide comments towards me and avoiding speaking with me. After a second meeting with the city attorney, I was told that the issues I had brought to the city attorney appeared to be more ethical in nature, and that I could present that information to the rest of council for their consideration. Yet we're not here to discuss Mr. Carr's behavior. We're here to discuss the office of the Mayor Pro Tem. It was at that point Mr. Carr simply refused to speak with me. Think about that for a moment. A council member refusing to even greet another council member, much less discuss city policy and city business. It's during that time that Mr. Carr responded to an email that was sent to someone who was critical of the mayor and I. Mr. Carr's reply was to say that the mayor and I are bombastic, self-righteous, and untruthful. You might agree with that assessment, but let me ask you this. Should any member of council be writing those comments in an email and sending them to the public? What would the outcry have been if the mayor or I would have wrote anything like that about any member of this council or any person sitting in this audience right now? It would have been on the agenda. Yet, we're not here to discuss Mr. Carr's behavior. We're here to discuss the office of the Mayor Pro Tem. This brings me to the most recent issue. During a recess at the May meeting, Mr. Carr became loud and agitated to the point where it's difficult to hear anyone speak. Mr. Carr was using profanity, and when asked to calm down, looked and asked me if I was going to engage him in a physical altercation. Asked me if I wanted to, what was I going to do, punch him in the face? Mr. Carr then stormed away. This behavior was in the view of others, and it was agreed that the incident would be handled at a later time. Yet, we're not here to discuss Mr. Carr's behavior. We're here to discuss the office of the Mayor Pro Tem. So, is it any surprise that Mr. Carr co-sponsored this agenda item to replace me? No. Does Mr. Carr sound like a person who could easily separate his personal opinion of me from a logical decision to replace me as Mayor Pro Tem? To me, no. Now, setting personal issues aside, this discussion really doesn't appear to be about my performance. It does feel like it is a way to take some pressure off this council because of how the mayor and I vote in a similar fashion. To some, the titles of mayor and mayor pro tem carry weight. When both of us vote against something, citizens ask questions. They wonder why the rest of council voted the other way. Replacing me with someone who routinely opposes the mayor will not change the vote total, but it makes it look different. It will shield this council from scrutiny while doing nothing to serve the citizens of Monroe. Replacing me could also be seen as punishment for those who are vocal critics of HB 3, even though I truly believe that that's not why this agenda item was created. This was months in the making, and I'm almost finished. If this council decides to replace me, it can be seen as a political decision. Keep in mind that several members of this council have declared they're running for mayor or will be up for re-election soon, with filing beginning in December. Replacing me gives one of those candidates the title of Mayor Pro Tem. And with that title comes perceived authority and political advantage. By replacing me, it would appear that this council has handpicked their preferred candidate. That doesn't serve the citizens and only serves to deepen the dysfunction that you see in this council. I was elected by the citizens to serve them. I have worked tirelessly to do so. I have not received a single warning or public criticism from this council, not for my public comments, not for my social media, not for failing to do my duties. I come here prepared, I do my research, and I do what I think is best for the community. I give this council my full attention, and yet we're here to discuss my removal. I ask you to consider the precedent that would set for anyone else holding the title of Mayor Pro Tem in the future. Regardless of your performance or your dedication, the only real requirement is you make a majority of this council happy. I've had enough of the constant fighting. The staff has had enough of the constant fighting. I'm tired. They're tired. The citizens are tired. But I fear that replacing me as Mayor Pro Tem won't bring peace to this council, because for some, no matter what is done, nothing will ever be enough. There's hope. If the members of this council can find a way to block out the noise of social media, not allow those who yell the loudest to set the priorities for this council, and refuse to be dragged into personal conflicts, we can move forward. All it takes is for members of this council to simply say no to continuing the conflict. To close, at the end of the day, no matter what this council decides to do, I will keep working hard for the citizens. I will continue to be the most prepared. I will stand for what's right, and I will not be discouraged. I appreciate the citizens who elect me to represent them. But I want to tell you this. The titles of councilman and mayor pro tem are not what define me, and they're not the most important thing in my life. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. No, left. Order. Thank you. Okay. All right, any more comments?
First of all, I want the council to get along. It would be wonderful if we could be harmonious. We disagree sometimes. That's natural. Everybody don't always think the same. But I just wanted to correct one thing. I don't routinely oppose Robert. I think Robert knows that I have tried very hard to work with him. I've told you that when you first were elected, that I would try to support you, which I have. And you made a statement about handpicking Mayor Pro Tem. As you recall, when Councilman McGee was reading his statement, he mentioned how the mayor, which is very unusual, made the motion, so he handpicked you too. But that's neither here nor there. I'm going to make the statement that I neither sought nor did I ask to be nominated for that position. Whether I am or not, I will give 150%, as I always do. I'm going to remain transparent, honest, and work with integrity. And I, too, thank the people for my support. I was the highest vote getter, so somebody thought I could do the job.
Okay. I'm going to remind everyone, order in the room. We will not be clapping, okay? All right, that's both sides. Please keep order. All right, at this time, I have a motion and a second. Okay, if there's no other discussion, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Okay. Next up. Okay. Next up, I'd like to recognize Council Members Carter Thompson once again to introduce this item.
Is it possible to pull up the staff report on this one? Can we do that? Thank you, Peyton. Thank you, Peyton. I think everyone can see it. I'll open the discussion on this. There will be a discussion on a no confidence vote of Mayor Burns based on the following: continued use of the city's logo and city address to communicate personal views on topics not related to local governance, repeated failure to preside over meetings in an orderly and civil manner, and failure to communicate with all of City Council regarding HB3. If I may take a moment, I'll just, if I may, just go ahead and state mine, and then I don't have to say anything else twice, okay? I am aware and I know the mayor's aware and others are aware, that the use of the logo and the city address, there's a disclaimer on it, and it doesn't violate any legal standard, but I do know that it has been communicated. I know I've communicated it. It's been communicated many times, that the perception that's created is that it's a statement from the city. And of course, the mayor has a great sphere of influence across the city. When people see the city logo, when they see the city address, I don't know if they take time to read the disclaimer, maybe they do, but the perception that's created is that it's communicated from the city. My personal take on that is I wish that you had a personal Facebook page that didn't have your title in front of it. I have one. I think several of us do. It's not the message in your views, sir. It's the method and the messenger behind it. Just because you have the authority to do something doesn't mean it's necessarily the best judgment to do it a certain way. And when people share that concern and it's ignored, or it's like, well, you don't agree with me. Well, maybe I don't agree on the topic. Maybe I do agree, fully agree on whatever the topic is. Another thing that's a concern to me is using that logo, that address. What if someone else, and I'm not speaking about you, but what if someone else takes that and really wants to use it for purposes that it was never intended to be used for? You're leaving the door open for all of those things, in my view. So I don't have any confidence in that. We've talked about that. I don't think I have to go into great detail to talk about the repeated failure to preside over meetings in an orderly and civil manner. I will own the fact that last month I called for a point of order, and Mayor, you're correct. I didn't give you a chance to go there. I called for a recess. A recess was granted, which I appreciate. I will have to say that it was such an egregious statement to everyone sitting up here, including you, that I needed a few minutes. I'll just be honest, I did. And so I didn't give you the opportunity to do that. But there have been other opportunities and a failure to do so, to preside over the meetings where we don't have the kind of exchanges that we've had for quite some time now. The last piece, the failure to communicate with all of City Council regarding HB3. Here's my personal opinion of that. I don't have any confidence in your ability to preside over the meetings in an orderly way. And in regard to HB3, we did not know anything about HB3, or I didn't know anything about it. City staff didn't know anything about it until there was a call made from the Board of Elections to our city manager's office informing us that this was moving very quickly through the legislature. I can't connect the dots on who knew what when. I don't know the answers to all those questions, but here's what concerns me. And the fact that we are now having a partisan election next year, that has already been decided. The legislature had the authority to make that change. That's not anything to dispute. It was the way in which it was handled that was most disturbing to me. And I want to say this, the citizens deserve credit that I don't think that they're taking on this one, because when we found out about it, and when I found out about it, there were a lot of back and forth calls with our legislators during those few days there. And I know the mayor was out of town at a family event, and he should have been where you were, where you should have been. So that's not up for discussion. I mean, that doesn't even enter into my thinking. But as far as communicating to the public, I just want to reiterate to the citizens that because there was communication between staff and because there was communication between council members, whether they were in town, some of them were, some of them were not, and the press conference that was held, the citizens listened and they called and they emailed. And the outcome of that ended up being, instead of us looking at a primary that would by state law have been on September 9th, and we would have had an expense of several $1,000s that we had not budgeted for, instead of it happening so quickly. And the biggest piece was getting the citizens educated on what a partisan election looks like, one we haven't had since 1960. So the fact that our legislators heard the citizens, and I really want you to get that, they did hear you. Is it the outcome everyone wanted? No, but we do have the opportunity the rest of this year. I know filing begins in September. There's a primary in March. There'll be the election in November. We do have the opportunity to communicate, to educate, to get people informed about what this really means for the city of Monroe. And again, I'll say the only municipality in Union County, but we are where we are now, but we're in a position to where we can make sure that everyone's informed. And that was a fair ask. The two things that were asked for were Monroe to be removed. That decision was made, the General Assembly, our legislators made the decision not to do that, but they did honor our request to give us more time. And so now the decision they made was we would be in partisan elections, even years, and everyone would have a year added to their term up here. So going back to the first thing I said at the beginning of the meeting, we're all going to be together for quite a while, for a little while. And but my concern about that was we didn't know about it, sir. It was going to cost us money, and it was happening quickly. And you're always prompt to speak about things, to post about things. I know you had one statement I think I saw on your Facebook page. I don't have access to any of your other social media. But there was never any connection to us regarding a pivotal piece of legislation. To me, that is a failure to lead. And so I don't have confidence in that either. So that's my personal, I don't have anything else to say about this piece, other than I know others will have, comments they want to make, but that's where I stand on it. I will make a motion for us to vote on a vote of no confidence, but that'll stand there until there's a second or other discussion.
I second the motion.
I'd just like for the attorney, would you please kind of go over what a no confidence vote is, just so everybody can know what we're voting on, please?
It's amazing you would ask that question, and I'm prepared for it.
Awesome.
A vote of no confidence is largely symbolic. It is a motion that the body can adopt if it wishes to express a lack of confidence in any of its officers, subordinate boards, or committees. It has no effect other than to reflect the council's views on that person or that matter. It is not a censor, nor does it remove anyone from office or reduce their authority. It is a main motion, which means it has to be made and seconded and debated.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. Any comments? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I do have a resolution from 4 members of council. Whereas Robert Burns was elected mayor of the city of Monroe following the November 7, 2023 municipal election after winning a coin toss to break a tie with Robert Yanachek. And whereas since being elected mayor, Mayor Burns' behavior as an elected official has not been in the best interest of all of the citizens of Monroe. Whereas on July 9, 2024, Mayor Burns was censured for a pattern of behavior since he became mayor. And whereas Councilman James Carr stated during the July 9th meeting that these repeated patterns of behavior included social media posts with content directed at citizens and merchants, particularly the calling of individual narcissistic beta male snowflakes. And whereas Councilman Kerr further stated that a second instance was for Mayor Burns to use the City Hall address and phone number for a National Day of Prayer contact for a group unrelated to the City of Monroe. Thirdly, the endorsement of 2 political candidates while in his official capacity as mayor. And whereas the
Okay, folks, we're going to pivot away from this Monroe City Council meeting to a Homeland Security update. In case you missed it on WCNC Plus earlier this evening, we were talking about some changes for folks who are going through security at the airport. And you know, for many, many years, we all had to take off our shoes unless you were flying with, you know, TSA PreCheck, for example. Rules are going to be changing here. So with that, we want to turn to that announcement. Here's Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem speaking on those security changes.
We have some very exciting news to announce that today we have started a new no shoes policy with the Department, the Transportation Security Administration. TSA will no longer require travelers to remove their shoes when they go through our security checkpoints. This is something that I know for quite some time people have talked about and discussed, and we know that when President Trump was elected that he pledged to make life better for all Americans, and that includes those who are travelers going through our busy airports. We want to improve this travel experience, but while maintaining safety standards and making sure that we are keeping people safe as they go to take their vacations, travel for work, or spend time with their families. So we took a hard look at how TSA does its business, how it does its screening processes, and what we do to make people safe, but also provide some hospitality as well. Now, this is especially important to streamline the process and look at efficiencies that we can build in as we build up for some big events that are going to be coming here in the next 12 months here in the United States of America. As you all know, right now we have the club championships going on. A lot of travelers and visitors are coming into the country, but next year we will also have the Olympics that will be in the United States of America. The World Cup matches will be happening, as well as many America 250 events. All of those will bring us record travelers to the United States. Many, many people will be on airlines traveling in and out of our airports, and it's important that we find ways to keep people safe, but also streamline and make the process much more enjoyable for every single person. TSA first implemented the no shoes policy in 2006, almost 20 years ago. And in those 20 years, since that policy was put in place, our security technology has changed dramatically. It's evolved. TSA has changed. We have a multi-layered, whole-of-government approach now to security and to the environment that people anticipate and experience when they come into an airport that has been honed and it's been hardened. We are very confident that we can continue to provide hospitality to folks and for American travelers and for those visiting our country while maintaining the same standard of security for passengers and for our homeland. The key to our approach is layered security. Passengers will still pass through multiple layers of screening. They'll also go through identity verification, and in fact, TSA has recently experienced some fantastic success with implementing Real ID. As you know, Real ID was put into statute over 20 years ago, and we recently put that into place that it went seamlessly. In fact, right now we are experiencing over 94% compliance with passengers who come through our airports and screening processes with Real ID compliant identification. Now, as you know, most of those IDs, if they're driver's licenses, they'll have a star in the right-hand corner. They may use other federally recognized identifications such as passports or tribal IDs or military IDs. But many people thought that when Real ID was implemented that it would be difficult. It would, some in the mainstream media talked about it being Armageddon, that it wouldn't be able to happen, and it has happened seamlessly because of the hard work of those who work within TSA and because of our security officers who worked very hard to make sure that passengers were compliant, but to do it in a way that facilitated their traveler. So please, I'd encourage all Americans to still go out there if you don't have your Real ID yet. It does help us identify who you are and keep passengers safe, and we would encourage you to go so and to do that. Now, we're just getting started. We've implemented several transformational changes at TSA and our security checkpoints already just since the Trump administration has has come into office. We have recently piloted different types of security lanes. We have family lane security checkpoints that are open at several airports that allow families to get screened separately from other people so that it can be very accommodating for them and their experience with children or small babies. We also have implemented around some of our air bases and facilities the ability to have a military lane that expedites the process for those who currently served in our armed services, those who are stepping up to defend our freedoms, that they can have a security checkpoint specifically dedicated to them and in those areas where we see high traffic volumes of those who serve. With this no shoes policy, we anticipate that Americans and travelers and those coming into our country will be very excited that they will no longer have to remove their shoes. The one thing that I will say is that doesn't mean that there won't be times once in a while where someone will have to remove their shoes. If they get put into a different situation or need additional layers of screening where that may be asked of them. But overwhelmingly, the policy will be that no longer will that be required of every single person that comes to a checkpoint. The golden age of America is here. We're so excited that we can make the experience for those individuals traveling throughout our airports in the United States much more hospitable, more efficient for them, more timely, and that they can get to their destinations and spend much more time with their loved ones and with their families and with those accomplishing great things for their future. So with that, I will open it up to any questions that any of you may have. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks so much, Ellen from Bloomberg. Can you say whether travelers who don't have real IDs will have to take off their shoes?
Yeah, that is not going to be specifically required for individuals who don't have real IDs. They still won't have to take off their shoes. If they do get flagged for a different reason or need additional screening, that may be required of them, but they won't be specifically identified as someone who has to remove their shoes. I do want to introduce behind me too as well, we have some fantastic TSO officers behind us, some employees working with TSA, and then also we have Ha and Adam who have been here working in leadership in TSA that have been so grateful for them in their out-of-the-box thinking at how we implement reforms and make this experience much more available for those individuals who are traveling through our airports. I'll come to you next.
Good afternoon, Secretary Nicole Johnson from Reuters.
Yes.
Question, what recent changes to security equipment or threats data has offered you the assurance to make this change?
We've gone back and looked at our security processes, looked at the efficacy of everything that we do, every screening process that we have to see what results it is giving us, what information it is giving us about travelers, and then our technologies, if it's giving us the information we need as far as the screening of individuals, whether it's magnetometers or whether it is processes where they're being identified by a TSO. So all of that has been evaluated to see what is affected, what should stay in place, and what should be removed to streamline the process. Yes.
Hello. Roberto Macedonio for NTN 24. Ms. Secretary, I would like to ask you about President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro. He sent a letter to Donald Trump retracting his accusations about the U.S. government was doing a coup d'etat in Colombia. Do you have any opinion?
That the president was doing what in Colombia?
He was conspiring against the Colombian government to take them off of the power. This is what President Petro said about Marco Rubio. He sent a letter to Donald Trump retracting himself after these accusations. What do you think about that Petro did?
Well, I won't speak to that today since we want to focus on the American security here at our airports today. But I know that President Trump is working very hard to build relationships with all countries in order to make sure that we are returning their citizens back home that may be in our country illegally committing crimes. We've had conversations on security agreements with Colombia, and I know that also trade negotiations have been ongoing with the country as well, and we're hoping for a better relationship there.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, Madam Secretary. Luke Barr with ABC News. Can you talk a little bit about what the next steps are, what the timeline looks like, when this will be implemented, and then why now? What is the reasoning for this policy to be put in place now? And then I have an off-topic question.
Well, as soon as President Trump came into office, he encouraged all of us as cabinet secretaries to evaluate every agency and department, see what we can do to save taxpayers money, keep more money in their pockets, to give them more opportunities to enjoy their freedoms and liberties, to keep them safe. And certainly that is my job as Homeland Security Secretaries, to evaluate everything that we do and make sure that we're protecting American citizens here in our homeland. So in working with TSA, we've gone back and evaluated all of our security screening processes and looked at how effective they've been, if they've yielded the results that we want, what kind of technologies can we implement that will keep people safer. I'm excited about the fact that we have the big, beautiful bill that has been signed and put into law. That'll give us resources that we can continue to invest in new technologies. That gave us the opportunity to focus on exit lanes. We can implement technologies there, new screening processes that will help us screen your bags faster, make sure that when we're going through checkout lanes and security lanes that we have the ability to scan individuals, potentially if people choose to opt in, use biometrics to identify people quicker so that they have the ability to go through much more in a streamlined fashion. So all of those resources will be plugged into making this a much more efficient, safe, and I would say advanced security system than we've ever had before. But that is, I think, the key to all of government under President Trump's administration, is that we evaluate everything that we do and make sure that it is something that is best serving the American people, and that's one of the reasons that you see this policy being implemented today. Yes.
Hi, Sarah Ploss with CBS News.
Yeah.
A little bit of a two-part question for you.
Sure.
Is this an immediate nationwide rollout starting today?
Yes.
And then do you feel like immediately you have every airport nationwide has the capability to stop, a shoe bomb or whatever it might be right now from making it through security?
We've gone back and evaluated this process and how we screen individuals and looked at the efficacy of it and making sure that everything that we do matters. And if it is something that is beneficial, that helps us in the screening process, we will continue to do it. So there will be individuals at times that will be asked to remove their shoes. If we think there is additional layers of screening that is necessary, that may still happen to an individual. But we are excited with the fact that we have the technology now, that we have the multi-layers of screening in place that we've built in over the recent several years that give us the ability to allow our travelers to keep their shoes on. Yes.
Hi, I'm Pavan from Politico. The Supreme Court ruled this afternoon to allow President Trump to move forward with mass firings of federal workers. Will the TSA move forward with a reduction in force, and what could that look like and when?
We'll continue to evaluate the decisions out of the Supreme Court, but as always, we comply with court requirements and federal court decisions. Yes.
Hi, Alexandra Scores, CNN.
Yes.
I'm wondering if this shoe removal policy was that some level of security theater? Why did we do it all these years?
Everything that TSA does and requires of travelers has always been necessary, but they have advanced over the years. Since the no-shoes policy went into place in 2006, we have made advancements in how we screen individuals. As you've gone and traveled through airports, I'm sure you've recognized it as well. We've added new scanners, new technologies, more TSO officers in some areas. If the Real ID compliance allows us another layer of security, knowing who's going through our checkpoints and who isn't, you'll still see dogs being used to be able to check different bags and individuals as they go through. So all of those processes give us the ability to allow travelers now to keep their shoes on. Yes, follow up.
And so knowing that, does this new implementation lessen the value of pre-check, and will we see decreases in prices maybe?
I believe pre-check will still be something that many travelers will want to utilize, because when they have TSA pre-check, they won't have to take off their belt or their coat or remove things out of their bag such as laptops or compliant liquids. So TSA pre-check still adds a value to those travelers. What we're implementing here today for every single traveler is just that they get the chance to keep their shoes on, which I think they'll be thrilled about. Yes.
Hi, this is Marta Garde from FNU Services. Mr. President said today that you are not going to need so much border funding because no migrants came into the border last month. How much do you think that you can save, and how are you planning to spend those savings?
Yes, we are continuing to look at the dollars that were appropriated to the Department of Homeland Security through the Big Beautiful Bill. And the border wall still needs to be finished as far as infrastructure. And also, when the last border wall was built during the first Trump administration, the structure was completed, but the technology around it was not fully implemented. So we still need to deploy a lot of the surveillance, the cameras, and the ability to have the kind of security system in place around the wall to make sure that we truly have a secure border far into the future. So we'll evaluate that, and absolutely the President is encouraging everyone to not just look at the dollars that were appropriated, but how can we save as much as possible that doesn't need to be spent and be accountable to the taxpayers. Other questions? Yes.
Each airport has different equipment with varying capabilities. How will you be sure that every airport in the U.S. has the necessary technology it needs?
We evaluated the equipment that every airport has and are fully confident at the no shoes policy that we still have the security needs in place at every single checkpoint. I think you'll be excited to hear, though, that we have the ability now to implement even more technologies. And we will be piloting several different security checkpoints across the nation at different airports that will allow individuals to come in through a security checkpoint and maybe not even have to interact with officers at all, walk through machines, keep their bag with them, not remove laptops. All of those are technologies that we're exploring right now that we could put into place. And I think over the next 6 to 9 months, you will see across the country pilot lanes and security checkpoints that will give us even more advancements and make this security process much more streamlined for the traveler. Yes.
The new technology you're talking about, is there any plan to take a look at the liquid rules or any other rules like that?
I would say that every rule is being evaluated. All of you have traveled, and all of you know that sometimes the checkpoints can be cumbersome and unpredictable based on what the situation is there. And so with removing your technology, the liquids, your belts, your coats, your shoes, all of them are being evaluated and looked at, but it can only be accomplished if we have the adequate technology to make sure we're doing this safely and still keeping our systems hardened against those who would wish to perpetuate criminal activity against our airlines or those who would travel in our airways. So we'll continue to look at them, but no announcements made in those areas today.
So there you have it, updates from Homeland Security about the changes the next time that you go through TSA lines and security when you're flying. We're turning now to the cabinet meeting today with President Trump and his cabinet members. Of course, we had alluded to this before on an earlier afternoon stream here on Live Impact News. Some of the news coming out of here regarding tariffs had some influence on the markets today. Also heard discussions about Russia, Ukraine, and the recent strikes on Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities. So with that, let's turn to the president making some of those remarks there at that meeting.
Thick with concrete and steel. Anything could land, and right now, they were 1 hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. I was keeping it. Outside of that, we were leaving, and I would have been out faster than them, but we would have gotten out with strength and dignity. Instead, that was the most botched up mess I've ever seen. They left all that equipment behind, and every year they have a parade running down some third-rate street with the equipment. You know, it's supposed to be Fifth Avenue. It doesn't work. But with all that equipment that they left, they should have taken every ounce of it. I was taking every ounce. I said every screw, every bolt, every nail you take out of there. And Millie said, I remember one time, sir, we're better off leaving the equipment. Why? Well, it's cheaper. I said, cheaper? You mean it's cheaper to leave a $150 million airplane rather than flying it into Pakistan or India or someplace, or just flying it straight home? It's cheaper. Yes, sir. That's when I knew he was an idiot. Didn't take long to figure that one out. But they left all that equipment, but they left their dignity behind. It was the most embarrassing moment, in my opinion, in the history of our country. Not that we got out. We should have not been there. but that we got out the way we got out with great embarrassment and death. You had 13 young people. I've gotten to know their families very well, but you had hundreds of people killed that nobody talks about. You had the other side, many people were killed. Many people are walking around with no legs, no arms from that whole thing. They left from the wrong airport. They should have left from Bagram, because Bagram was a big base with hundreds of miles of fencing and territory around it. Nobody would be able to get near it. And they left. So, we've done a great job, and I think people are really starting to see it. They're starting to appreciate it. Pete's done fantastically. That mission was a work of art. And I have spoken to some of our perceived, I don't know if they're enemies, but they're perceived as being potential enemies. And they essentially said the same thing. Very impressive. There wasn't a thing that we didn't lose an engine. We didn't lose it. Just they landed and they were cheered. But the sad thing was they were cheered, and one of the pilots said, we were a little concerned because when we got out, we were told that on television they were reporting that we may have missed our targets. Sir, we hit every target. That's what I do for a living. We hit every target. In fact, when the bombs hit, a yellow haze came over the horizon that I've never seen before. It just lit up the whole horizon, brighter than the sun. It was like looking into the sun. He goes, we hit our target, because you know what that was exploding. And but they were a little downbeat because they listened to that fake CNN reporting and the fake New York Times. They worked together to try and say that it wasn't perfect. They couldn't say what they missed. All they could say is, maybe it wasn't perfect. And you ought to fire that reporter immediately. You should fire her. Real fake. And so I just want to congratulate those pilots. And, a lot of people don't like bringing things like that up. I do. I always like confronting, because otherwise the public doesn't know that you're a bunch of crooked people. But they know, they've learned, and the media has to straighten out their act. The media is down to 17% approval. You got to do a little better than that. It's important for the country that you do better. I think they ought to make a lot of changes. I think changes are going to be made to the media, but it's hard to have a really successful country if you have a corrupt media, and we really have a corrupt media. And nobody really knows why. I mean, why would you want to have open borders and criminals pouring into our country? Why would you want to have men playing in women's sports, transgender for everyone? You'll have to figure that out. But some of you don't. I mean, I'm looking at some people, they love the country, but I look at other people and they can't. But we're really proud of our military. It was, and the people that maybe don't like us or want to play games with us, because I think that had you not had the situation in Afghanistan, I don't think Putin would have gone in. I think when Putin looked at how stupid and incompetent that operation was, he said, wow, this might be a chance. And we're dealing with him now too. We're not happy with Putin. I'm not happy with Putin. I can tell you that much right now, because he's killing a lot of people. And a lot of them are his soldiers and their soldiers, mostly. And it's now up to 7,000 a week. And I'm not happy with Putin. Okay, any questions? Yes.
Yes, sir. You just said that you're not happy with Vladimir Putin. Is there anything that you plan to do to act on that feeling of unhappiness?
Well, I wouldn't be telling you. Don't we want to have a little surprise? One of the things we did with the attack is that, you asked that question, I didn't mean to be rude, but I'm rude because I'm looking at some of these crooked people up here, so I'm rude, but your question was asked very nicely. But one of the things we did is we went over every fact. We wanted to get every fact straight. We wanted to have the distance straight, the number of pilots straight. Everything had to be correct, because this was a very important mission. If we failed on this mission, it was beyond the war that, obviously we had with Iran and Israel, and a lot of hatred, a lot of years and years of hatred, centuries of hatred. People have never seen anything like it. So we wanted to be correct with all our facts. So what I was doing is just asking, it would be great if the media would be correct with their facts. That's all we. So go ahead. So finish it up.
Oh yes. Just returning back to Russia. If there's anything that you would signal about your displeasure with them.
Well, look, I'm very unhappy with them. There's no reason for this. It's turned out to be tougher, but it's only tougher. And I will say the Ukrainians were brave, but we gave them the best equipment ever made. We gave them
Okay, so folks, there we have it, a bit of the cabinet meeting today with President Trump, discussing a lot of the big topics, of course, that we had mentioned before: tariffs, Russia, Ukraine, and the Iran strikes. We're going to turn you now to our next hour of programming. Thanks for tuning in here on Live Impact News.